Comic books are not recession proof. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Now, of course, there is one exception, because Sanity Rise of the Occult, issue number 1, never goes down in value. You want to know why? Because I control the market. Only available on SwaggleHouseComics.com. Can you get that book? And the price will always be at its stable floor price. But we can't say the same for the rest of the comic book market, because watching this comic book index, we know that comic books have been proven to not be recession proof, although it seems like comic books may be recession resistant. So in this video, we got ourselves an update to the June month of 2023 here in the comic book index, and we got some very, very interesting stats to go over. Of course, you guys know what the drill is at this point. You know, it's going to be a boring video. We're not going to be showing comic books. We're going to be talking numbers. So you got to sit here, you got to listen. The rules are the rules. This is the way it goes. And now we got to get into the video. But of course, before I get into it, like, comment, subscribe. Check out SwaggleHouseComics.com. Sanity Rise of the Occult. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I've been getting good feedback on it. But hey, let us get into the comic book index. Now, I apologize for being a little bit late on this video. Of course, the holiday weekend, 4th of July, pushed the schedule back a little bit on it, but let me make it up to you and dive right in. Of course, if you guys don't know by now, the comic book index is the top 100 sold books per age, silver, bronze, and copper. I take the highest volume of grade, and I get all of my data from GPA, which suffice to say means if I was going to buy the top 100 books every single month, how much money would it cost me to do so? Well, last month, if you were going to do that in May of 2023, if you were going to buy the top 100 Silver Age books, we were at 46,743. We were on the brink, as I titled that video, because that was going to be the lowest number that we've seen for the entire index since that of late 2020. And the big question to me within comic books and studying this index has not been which books are going down and which books are going up. The big question has always been, is the market as a whole going to retrace back to the 2020 prices? And last month we were on the brink. Well, what happened here in the month of June? Well, the comic book market was resistance. We had a bounce back up to the $52,398 price point, almost that of what we were selling for in April. So it seems like, you know, when the market corrected in May, people were thinking, oh, there's a lot of good opportunities. Let me jump back into this stuff. Maybe it's a good time to buy. Although we still have to be a little bit careful. It does seem to be that in the Silver Age, we've been oscillating month to month. And of course, you know, with the Silver Age index, there's always going to be, you know, swings in any given month. And of course, later on in the video, I'll give my bear and bull case of sort of what we're seeing with these graphs. But let's jump ahead now to the Bronze Age index. Now, last month, we were also on the slide in May of 2023, dropping down to the $38,930 range. Again, another number flirting with that of the end of 2020. And the question, again, has always been, are we going to break through? Are we actually going to see retracements all the way back to what books were selling for in 2020 and even 2019 and 2018? Well, here in the month of June, like the Silver Age, the Bronze Age had a bounce back, jumping back up to 42,236. Now, that is still not as high as the April number, and similarly not as high as the March number and some of the months prior to that. So we have been feeling, you know, lower lows and lower highs, which does kind of indicate that, you know, perhaps we're still on the slide, although the floor hasn't necessarily dropped out, and maybe it has everything to do with, you know, the macro environment, which again, I'll talk about later on in the video. But for now, it does feel like there is a stability above the 2020 prices. Now, of course, we got to jump ahead to the Copper Age index. Now, in the month of May, like the other indexes, we were on the slide at 26,646. And what did we do here in the month of June? Well, we again bounced back up to the $27,477 range. Now, this wasn't as big of a bounce, more of a dribble, if you ask me. But it does seem like, you know, we kind of saw the floor. We looked at the edge, and comic book collectors said, you know, no, we're not going to go that far. This seems like a good time as any to pick up some of these key books, at least in the top 100 of each of these ages. And again, the big question I've been always wondering is, are we going to break through on that floor? Well, there still is a lot to unpack with that, and I will get into it later on in the video. But for now, seemingly, comic book collectors think that now is a good time to buy. And speaking of buying comic books, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Torpedo Comics. Now, if you guys don't know, Torpedo Comics is one of the best comic book stores in the country. They are based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and have locations in the Southern California area as well. But if you can't make it out to those locations, locations, they have this fantastic online store, torpedocomics.com, where you can get yourself some mystery boxes, raw comic books, CGC's labs, and trading cards if you're into that sort of thing. They even have these handy sections on their website like latest products where you can see what the new inventory is listed on their website. They also have some things like bestsellers like Essentia by John Dolomane, another creator-owned comic book. And one of the cool things about Torpedo Comics is later on this month, they're going to be having Torpedo Comic Con down here in Southern California at the Hilton in Glendale. If you happen to be in the Southern California area, I highly recommend that you check out Torpedo Comic Con. They're going to have great guests there like Jim Lee. They're going to have other ones like J. Scott Campbell. And hey, guess what? Swagglehos is also going to be there selling his book, Sanity, Rise of the Occult. But of course, if you can't make it out, you can still log on to torpedocomics.com and use my promo code SWAGGLEHOS to save 10% off on your order. I want to say thank you to Torpedo Comics for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into our indexes. All right, let's jump forward now to the side-by-side graphs before we talk about some of the key takeaways. Now, looking at these charts, we do see that, for the most part, on the bird's eye view, we are still technically on the decline. I mean, ever since that of 2021, the comic books have been going down in value. Now, we, of course, are putting up the resistance here at this sort of 2020 price range, but like I've been saying in some of the other videos, Q3 and Q4 could be a little bit tighter in the macro environment, so we don't actually know where comic books will be at that point, but it does seem to be the case that they are putting up a fight at this level, which means if you can find those good deals, it's probably a decent time to buy. Now let's kind of go into some of the details here. Of course, May in 2023 in the Silver Age, we were at 46,743, went up to 52,398, an increase of 12%. In the Bronze Age, we were at 38,930, and then in June we went up to 42,236, an increase of 9%. And then in the Copper Age, we jumped up to 27,477, an increase of 4%. So that 4 to 12% kind of margin for where we've been swinging, it feels like overall the index is up about 8% if we were going to average it out overall, which is a pretty decent return. But we can't get ahead of ourselves, because if we talk about the key takeaways, I think I can explain why the index has gone up this month. It has a lot to do with just the demand. It feels like while prices may not be going up, people are looking to buy those discounted valued silver books, because in the Silver Age, we had 12% down, 13% up, generally speaking, pretty even overall, 19% non-sale, which is a big decrease from that of the non-sale factor last month. So it felt like there were more people looking to buy. Then bronze book values, we have 23% down, which actually was pretty high compared to previous months, and only 12% up, but it was only 8% non-sale. So, again, the demand for books are out there, even if people are selling them for less. So it would seem like dealers are finally capitulating to prices that comic book buyers are actually willing to pay. And that's one of the reasons, ironically, why the value of the index has gone up while the peak prices are actually going down. Now, let's take a look here at the month-by-month chart. And this is the one that I'm, always very interested in. Of course, we got to pay attention to the cyan line there in the middle. That represents 2023. And you can see that, in May, we were very, very close to the crossing pattern of the 2020 yellow line. But then we had this bump back up here in June of 2023. So the question kind of remains, where are we going to move for the rest of the year? Up until this point, we were very much matching that of the graph of 2022. And so you would sort of think that maybe we were going to continue to be on the decline. In other prior years, we had been on the incline. So it kind of begs the question, where will we go from here? It feels like, seasonality wise, comic books perform not as well in quarter three. Then towards quarter four, they start to get that upswing, into the next year. And I suspect that'll be similar, where we might see, pullbacks in the next couple months to come. And then, towards the tail end of the year, if things are doing better in the macro environment, that might kind of catapult us into 2024 if the Fed kind of changes the monetary policy. Maybe they start to cut rates and, we go back to the moon. But let me finish out here with the index trend lines. Now, of course, these aren't drawn to scale, but something just to keep our eyes on. Last month, we were testing the bottom ends of the trend line, and now we kind of had that resistance back into the trend line overall. So, that's something always to think about as well. While the macro economy is not necessarily doing well, inflation is still going up. So the value of our dollar is still going down, which makes the prices of everything, essentially more expensive. And the longer that time horizon goes on, even if we are in a recession, it still can inflate the values of comic books and collectibles and things like that, just because we are now in the year 2024, where money doesn't mean as much, compared to that of, 1994. But let me finish out the video here with the bear and the bull case. I think this is kind of an interesting place to kind of break it down and talk a little bit about the market, kind of where we are. I mean, can you believe it? We are already midway through 2023. Here we are in the month of July, comic book market. It's been a very, very interesting year, comparing comic books to that of other, markets. If we look at the S&P, we look at crypto and Bitcoin, a lot of those markets have had big corrections compared to that of what they were going for, at the end of 2022. A lot of those assets are seemingly performing very well, which is not the case for that of comic books. I know a lot of the conversation out there is that, hey, comic books have actually held up pretty well and comic books are actually doing pretty good. And that can be true compared to that of other collectibles. But if we're looking at comic books compared to that of other assets, it does feel like comic books have hurt a lot more or gone down a lot more compared to that of, say, the stock market or even crypto for that matter. So we are kind of in this interesting spot. I mean, where do we go from here? I've said it many times on the channel. I think that there is a correlation between comic values and macro policy. But at the same time, I think maybe comic books, a lot of things have been already priced in to those markets. Anyone who is no longer collecting comic books, they've probably already left the hobby. The sentiment for movies right now is at an all-time low. I think the negativity in the comic book market is at an all-time high. And here we are still kind of putting up this resistance to those 2020 prices. So, it feels like we've kind of drained, a lot of collectors out there already. And in a way, I mean, this is what the environment feels like if nobody cares about the movies anymore and nobody is that interested in comic books. Even the modern comic book market, nobody is really that interested in it right now. Although there are people that are very excited about Void Rivals. But if I'm talking about the big two, Marvel and DC, they haven't really been moving the market in the same way, except for that of Spider-Boy. I mean, maybe Spider-Boy single-handedly is keeping the market afloat. But very, very interesting. We're going into con season now. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement and hype. Not so much MCU related. Of course, Hall H has been canceled for San Diego Comic-Con, and usually that would create some kind of lift in the comic book market, so it seems like we're not going to be getting that this year. But very interesting where we are. Again, like I said, it feels like comics are in a pretty good spot. I'm not saying you got to go all in on every single book right now, but at the same time feels like a good buying opportunity if you can find books being sold just above their 2020 price. It seems like for now those book prices are holding up, although like I always say, no book is recession proof, so you never really know. Might get lower in Q3 and Q4, with the exception of Sanity #1. This book never goes down in value. SwagHollowsComics.com. Get yourself a copy. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Are you still on Team Bear Bros? Are you now on Team Moon Boys after this June 2023 uptick? I have a feeling that for the next few months, we're going to be seeing more of this, more of this, more of this. And it's only until, we start cutting those rates that comic books will go to the moon once again. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Torpedo Comic Con. Check me out there. See y'all in the next one.